Everyone. Today we're going in episode 7, we're going to go over my book, First Contact Conversations with NAT. A little history. Back in 2008, um, I was having a conversation, and I'm going to have to give a little more background than this, but I was having a conversation with my own guardian angel that I call Theo, because Theo says that humans can't pronounce angelic names. And he said I could call him Tom, Dick, or Harry, but Tom would not work well in my meditations. So he does have humor also. So with that, I thought for a couple of weeks and called him Theo. It just came to me, and I found out that he and I have used that name in other past lives. So, uh, so one day Theo and I were communicating, talking, and he said, "You know, there's an ET that's monitoring our conversation, and he would like to talk to you." And I was really shocked. I did not know that that it would be like what was in the old days called a sort of a public telephone, where the farmers, there would be maybe 6 or 7 farmers, and they would all have the same telephone number, and you could pick it up to see if anybody was on the line, so you could make your own call. So uh, that's sort of how it started. And again, Theo said, "Do you want uh, to talk to him now?" And I said, "No, let me think of some questions." And so a couple of weeks later, that's what I started to do, and I've asked him thousands of questions, uh, including the book, which it was published in 2013. So there's been lots of changes even since then. And in this presentation, you'll see some of them. But some of the things we're going to cover today is, why are there so many UFOs flying around? Thousands of reports each day. Some people, have their phones out and they can partially or completely record it, and other people just have a verbal description because they couldn't get their phone out fast enough. So why are there so many UFOs all over the world uh, in this day and time? And then we'll take up, was there really a real Star Wars? And I'll give you the answer for that in this episode. And uh, what are the 10 positive energies, or do we have 10 positive energies? Do we have 4 negative energies? And why uh, uh, do they matter? Um, we're also I'm going to take up some of the UFO crashes in the past, but I will mention there have been really great journalists that have really, like a dog on a bone. um, they've kept after trying to get answers, and as much as they've tried, they, like most humans, are having to guess. And that includes excellent journalists like George Knapp, Jeremy Corbell, Ross Coulthard, and um, uh, Jesse Michaels. So uh, the other day I saw a uh, a question and answer for Ross, and he said something that I did put a note on his on that uh, comment that he made, that uh, he said uh, creation creates matter. Matter does not create uh, energy. So I paraphrased that a little bit. And I said, you're getting a little closer, according to what I've been told. So with that, let's begin, and you'll see now the presentation I'm going to give you is one I've given in person several years ago, and you'll see even the changes that have happened since I used to give that presentation, and how things have changed in today's time. First contact, conversations with an ET. I'm going to have to go back and give you a little update or a little information that I've given in previous episodes. Everyone can do what I do. It's telepathy, okay? And you can do exactly the same thing that I can do. It just takes a lot of practice. Now, this was a Duke University experiment using the Zener cards. And the problem uh, with their experiments is that they would take people off the street and try and have them communicate with each other. That's very difficult. It takes, if they had taken, say, let's say married couples that had been married 30 or 40 years, they would have had a higher success rate. Not saying it would be really high, but a better rate than they did in these tests. So, as I mentioned, uh, I'm able to communicate with my own guardian angel, with uh, this ET being called Antura, creator. I like to use the word creator because it's accepted by all the major religions, even though they have different names for creator. And Gaia, the soul of Earth, and so on. So you can communicate with any soul or even beings. The first one I wound up communicating with was an Indian shaman in the 1600s, because all of our lives are all going on at the same time, which is very difficult for a lot of people to understand. But the reason we're able to do this is the pineal gland, I'm told, which is in the back of our heads, acts as an antenna for all types of telepathy. And I'm talking about what are called thought packets that I receive, uh, images, feelings, hearing, you name it, they have all sorts of different names, but it all goes through the pineal gland. Even like a tarot reader will receive these messages, and they're transmitted down to their fingers so that they shuffle the cards correctly to give accurate information as best they can to their clients. And so it all works through the pineal gland. Now, Antura, who I started speaking to, I was discovered. Now, it took me a long time to get his name. It was like Ant and two, and one day he said, Antura, about that loud. So I finally got his name. I'm not very good on names. So he's an amphibian. Uh, I was discovered later that he's from a water planet in the Sirius B Star System. And it's a water world. So he has four fingers and toes, and the finger on the bottom of his hand is offset. So it sort of acts like our thumbs. He's able to grasp things that way. His skin color is blue. He has no hair, and he has only one gill behind his ear. And his body and the other amphibians from Nomo are more fish than they are uh, humanoid or whatever, because they're able to swim to great depths, a mile down, as we'll get into. So this is an image from that someone did of the Abe Sapien character from the Hellboy movies, and that's about as close as I could come. Uh, this guy has stripes, and as I said, Antura's skin is like the color of a dolphin's, but it just gives you a slight idea of how he would look because he has an angular face and a smaller mouth. And so, anyway, that's one idea of how he might look. Now, Antares planet, one that I was to learn later, was called Nomo. It's the third planet from the Sirius B sun, which is sort of a blue sun. Only 10% of it are land. Now, the the amphibians obviously take up the other 90%. But a uh, there's even an intelligent species on that 10% of land. The rest is all water, and the cities are a mile deep. What happened when they first started settling Nomo? Uh, that was 18 million years ago, maybe 18 million universal years, which would be 180 uh, uh, Earth years. Don't know, but I have a feeling that's what it might be. So 18 million years ago, the soul of the amphibians came to that solar system, and that's when they started. Now they were the young or new kids on the block because there were already planets in that star system where the people had been there for over 1 billion years. So they were really new. And they had to contend with a whale-like creature that loved to eat little amphibians. And so they quickly learned that they needed to hide out in the caves down at the bottom of their oceans. And that's how where they eventually built their bubble cities were on top of those caves so they could have protection from this giant whale-like character, fish. And I'm skipping that because some of that is no longer correct. Um, the originally, I was told that they were going to land. There was going to be Palladians or someone land in Russia, um, and even at that time, I said Russia, and and I was told yes because their people will accept anything their government tells them, and so they won't be as excited as will the people in the United States when they discover that that the government has been keeping secrets from them for many, many, many years. Now, how do the ETs get here? There are on Earth 60 portals. Now, most planets and suns and all have only like one portal. But we have 60 because we have ETs coming here from all over the universe, and they do it by what's called portal hopping. Now, portal hopping, there's energetic um, energetic pathways in between these planets and suns and galaxies. And so they, because these societies have been around for billions of years, they have learned to use these energetic pathways and they portal hop. I'm told that no one can go from one edge of the universe to the other. They have to do it by portal hopping. They have to go from one galaxy to the next to the next. So, but it's very fast. 1 second, 2 seconds, they're in the next one. And so on Earth, there are 60. One of them even goes to the next universe over, which I'll get into shortly, hopefully. And but and one, of course, goes to the moon. So we have these portals on Earth going all sorts of different places, and they've been seeing and experiencing these, such as on the Skinwalker Ranch, where they've seen a portal right above them. Now, Antura is part of a first contact team, and there are contact teams for governments, for scientists, and for grassroots. He's part of the grassroots team. The scientists, as an example, there's a group of Pleiadians in our government and the other governments like Russia and China and so on. They're not aware of this, but there are a group of Pleiadians, and once a month they visit each one of these scientific groups in those countries, and they assist them in furthering their science in regards to uh, these crash recoveries. And but they don't know that. And what the Pleiadians are doing is to make sure that everyone is at the same spot on the path, so to speak. It's a wandering path so that no one gets ahead of anyone else. And then, of course, there are the government ones. And so there's even been some contact I know, and maybe more that I don't know about, um, with our government. I mean, even a Pleiadian by the name of Valiant Thor uh, tried to lived in the Pentagon in the early 50s. That you can look up that more information about him. Now, here's one of the things that is different now than I was told back when I was putting the book together. Uh, Before I get to that, there really was a Star Wars. Okay, it happened a million years ago or so, and it it took place when the reptilian race called the Dracos had conquered all the planets uh, in their galaxy, and their galaxy is not as large as ours. And they decided to come to our galaxy and start taking over planets for their resources. Well, that started a Star Wars that went on for uh, for 27,000 universal years, but 270,000 Earth years, because Earth years are 10 times faster than universal years in order for us to slowly catch up with everybody else in the next few thousand years. And there's many reasons for that. You can go back to like um, my episode on the Earth experiment to learn more about that. But this did take place. Now, keep in mind, when our souls volunteered for what's called the Earth experiment, um, that we had all had uh, thousands of lives on our home planets. And we agreed to be veiled from knowing about that because creator of the universe wanted to see if we could solve problems that had perplexed the whole rest of the universe, problems that had never been solved. And so we agreed to be veiled in order to come up with uh, new things to uh, uh, fix these problems that had never been thought of before. Because, as an example, I'm told that I had 100,000 lives in these other um, in these on Nomo, and so I couldn't have, as an example, say, well, I remember having this problem back, 20 lives ago, and this is how I solved it. No, we had to solve them without knowing anything. Now, this the Star Wars, as I said, took place over 27,000 uh, universal years. And it was very bloody, very destructive. They would, uh, the the Dracos would come, and they would not blow up just one planet like you saw in the Star Wars movies, but they would blow up a sun, uh, and that destroying all the planets that surrounded that sun and all the billions of people that lived on those planets. And we did the same to them, but they had a lot more um, spaceships than we did. So it was pretty rough. Now there's I'll get into this in a minute, but there's a lot of planets in our quadrant of the galaxy, and there's a lot of planets in other quadrants of the galaxy. So Antura's mothership, I was first told that it was over 1 mile wide, had 4 decks, and a crew of 850. Now, later, he finally admitted to me that his mothership on the outside is 3 miles wide and has 11 decks, 20 stories tall. The crew is 900 plus their families, totaling 1,600 because they lived their whole lives on board that spaceship. And I was told by Antura, we told you that because we didn't want to frighten you. I said, well, I wouldn't have been frightened. He said, no, but the people that read your books and newsletters, uh, I have a weekly newsletter that goes out free that you can find on my website, www.thegeneralwavebook.com. And you can uh, you can read my 900 newsletters plus that I've done just by going to the website, clicking on articles and news. And you can even pull up Antura if you wish. So that was his mothership. Now, later, I was to find out that on the outside, it's 3 miles wide. Now, his ship was the one back in 1997 that was the Phoenix Lights. And it's in the boomerang shape, not in a V shape, as some people guessed back at that time period, but it's the one that was the Phoenix Lights that went over, and but it was Antura's ship. Now, what's really amazing is that because of this 10 positive energies and the 4 negative energies, we are all living in the 4 negative energies as part of the Earth experiment. When you go inside his ship, it turns into the 10 positive energies. They were even surprised, they meaning the ETs as a whole, to see that happen. So on the inside, it's 15 miles wide, and 2 of the 11 decks are like not open air, but wide, high ceilings, so that it would feel like a park to the crew and their families that live there. So I was told that on his spaceship, there are at least 20 to 30 ships. Some ships hold, he told me at that time, 5 to 8 and are around 30 to 40 feet in diameter. In reality, when you go inside those ships, you go into the 10 positive energies. Now, a little hint of that was when I think Jesse Michaels uh, interviewed Charles Hall. And Charles Hall said that he had been taken inside one of these scout ships, and that in it was only 30 or 40 feet wide, but had seating for 24 plus a restroom. And I was told that uh, Charles was asked by the ETs not to mention the fact that it seemed a lot larger inside, because in actuality it was around 5 times larger than it appeared from the outside. Now, his crew on a ship are composed of amphibians, various humanoids, bird beings, plant beings, insect beings, and reptilians, even. The reptilians, um, let's see, yeah, back to the Star Wars, the reptilians attacked, they wanted to take over more planets. And so this went on, as I said, for 27,000 years. Um, I was a religious leader, like sort of like the Dalai Lama on my planet Nomo, and I would incarnate each time as this religious leader. Um, so the uh, I communicated with Creator, and Creator suggested that I say, well, why don't you offer the reptilians to take part in the Earth experiment? And it was immediately rejected by this Federation of Planets, I'll call them. They weren't official at that time. They were, I'll get into in a second, but they despised the Dracos because of all the billions of people that have been killed over these thousands of years. And they said, no, we'll never do that. So 450 universal years go by, and we're losing the war. We just don't have enough spaceships and all. And so finally they said, okay, we'll offer, but we don't think anything's going to happen. And lo and behold, they accepted. And so 10% of the soul fragments having lives on Earth are reptilian. And by this happening, when they go back to their planets, they will have raised their vibrational levels, and they're going to bring negativity back to their planets, and it's going to help them raise their vibrational levels so that they'll stop warring. They agreed to stop warring with the 20,000 planets in our section of the galaxy. Uh, and that diplomatically, it's called the Great War. So here was the other thing, one of the other things that they didn't want to scare us about, so they spoon fed. Federation of Planets, I was told there was 200 joined together. No, it's 20,000. And again, I said, but that wouldn't have scared us. Yes, it would have scared some of the people reading your newsletters, Tom. So that's why they spoon fed us to get us used to knowing that there were more planets. Nibiru, a lot of people have asked me about Nibiru. Nibiru, of course, they would come to their planet, intersects our solar system every 3,600, 800 years, and they're way, way far from us. They're not close at all. But when they would come, they would enslave the people that were there, whether it would be Neanderthals or Cro-Magnons or humans, to work in gold mines because they wanted the gold. And so they are associated with the Federation of Planets, but they're not a member. They're on probation, and sounds like they will be for quite some time. They're not allowed to set foot on Earth, not at all. So we have all these timelines, and I've gone deeply into them. Um, and Antura, the reason I mention them here is Antura has already uh, had visits from the upper timelines all the way through 7. We're timeline number 6, and I was told originally in the book it was going to be a couple of years. It has not happened yet. It's supposed to happen anytime. It all depends on how many people in the world believe in ETs, because again, they don't want to frighten us. They want at least 50%. So we've had some very serious discussions on that, because I'm saying, hey, if people see these ETs and they're friendly, that should help move things along gradually. Now, they can communicate because they have a translation and a combination translation and force field device. And it's just some small device that sounds like it almost fits on your neck or something. I'm not quite sure. But it not only translates every single uh, speech, thought, you name it, in the universe, and this was developed over millions of years, but it also acts as a force field, so that it's like their own little spaceship or spacesuit, so that they can be in any type of condition, and they're protected uh, from the energies or the atmospheres that they're in. They could even go out and walk on the moon on top. Earth was moved here, and uh, if you can imagine how large the spaceships would be that could move a whole planet like Earth. So just enormous. Now, there is a limit on the size of the spaceships that can be near Earth. And if anyone gets too close, they are immediately contacted and said, you can't not come any closer to Earth. Uh, we are protecting them. So we are protected. These giant spaceships can be planetary in themselves. Now, there are 3 other universes that are adjacent to our universe. Only one of the universes you can see, because the other 2 are far across the other side of the universe. Our universe is not just 11.5 billion years old. And the James Reed telescope will the people that operate that telescope will finally decide that it looks like we're 20 billion years old, but in reality, the universe is 25 billion years old. So we just don't have the equipment yet. We will someday in the future have the equipment to see to the other end of the universe. But there is one universe we can see. Supposedly, if you look up towards Sagittarius, the galaxies in that direction and farther away look completely different than our galaxies. So the James Reed telescope will start seeing that one of these days, that those galaxies just don't look anywhere like ours. There's also a void of millions of miles wide in between our universe and the next one over. Antura has visited that universe, and he says, Tom, he says, I can't really explain the differences because you haven't been out to see the differences in our galaxies, in our universe. But he said, boy, it's really, really different there. So that's the universe next to ours. The I neglected to mention that when we that when I mentioned that, and that idea was to accept the Draco reptilian souls as part of the uh, as far as the Earth experiment. Um, they decided that I should be a advisor to the Federation, and so after that, I've been an advisor in each life that I've had on Noma. Right now, I'm having another life on Noma, and I'm 50 universal years old, and I've just started to be an advisor to the Federation again. At the same time, all the souls that wanted to be world leaders as part of the Earth experiment all wanted me to be their advisor too. So I've got a lot of extra lives, more than almost anyone else on Earth, because everybody wants me to be their advisor. So go to www.thegentlewaybook.com. It's where you can sign up for my newsletter, and you can sign up for my newsletter, and on the very first page of the website, and you can, if you wish, go ahead and explore um, all these uh, books that I have that will give you some ideas that you've never heard before about this Earth experiment and the 10 positive energies that our universe was created in, and all the other trillions of universes were created in, and the 4 negatives, which were only for our solar system. And you'll get a lot of information that you've never read or seen before. So thank you for listening.